Good morning. How are you today? Well, the heats have returned, but it's a beautiful day anyhow. When I was a kid, I really enjoyed magic acts. I think I may have mentioned how every Saturday when I'd go to confession and say my brother and I had an argument or something, I'd go across the street to this magic shop, and this old man, he would show me these tricks, and then I would buy one, and then he'd show me how he did it. And they didn't cost much, 50 cents a buck, something like that. And I'd practice them all week, and I'd come back next week and I'd get another one. Well, that was magic. That was diverting your attention. That was fooling you. And you never told anybody how you did the trick because they were always disappointed because it's always so obvious once you know the answer. Somewhere along the way, Sputnik happened, and I still had good eyes, and in the city I could see Sputnik in the Bronx, up in the sky, this glittering object. I've since seen it at the Science Museum and Air and Space Museum, and it's hard to believe that small object could be seen from Earth, but it could be, and it was. So I thought magic was replaced by science. That was the real thing. Amazing stuff in space and so forth. And there was Mr. Wizard, I think it was Mr. Wizard, and he did science experiments and he explained them, and they were like magic, but they weren't magic. They were real. And so the Earth is this huge chemistry set, physics set. It's been thoroughly examined, but still the things we don't understand or don't try to understand, do they become religion or do we think of them as magic? There was a course I had, I think it was Bronislawski. He talked about magic, science, and religion and the difference between them, and where we couldn't explain some things, we thought it was magic or it was religion. So was it ignorance? And it comes to mind because the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has issued a report today saying what we've seen around the world, that our inability to handle fossil fuels, our refusal to leave them in the ground, our insistence since the Industrial Revolution to push them up in the air and create the situation that is heating the planet is having devastating effect. 1.5 degrees Celsius since the Industrial Revolution, and we're afraid about it going to 2 and 3 degrees. We already have heat waves, oceans rising, ice melting, forest fires, drought, flood. We have less water that's drinkable, and that's going to get worse. We have less food. So what are we going to do? Well, we could have started in 2015, but we had a president who withdrew from those accords. But I don't know how devoted we were or how devoted the governments are. But we are one of the prime producers of these gases that 30 years from now, I don't know if humans will be able to exist on this planet. And you and I, we don't know if we'll be here or not because of the vagaries of life and death. But it's going to be a lot of suffering if we are, unless we change. And it has to happen yesterday. We have Congress that can't agree on how to give away fortunes and money, trillions of dollars to people to rebuild America, build it better. How are we going to get them to spend money on saving us from this terrible catastrophe, global warming? It's not climate change, it's warming. Why anybody doesn't say that, I don't know. When you consider that we can't convince people, even as they see family members die for failure to take a vaccination, for failure to stay away from people. They even have people saying after someone dies, oh, it's still a hoax. They can't believe it. We're getting new infections, 100,000 a day. I think it's gone up 2 times in the last 10 days or something like that, to 100,000. We have deaths every day. And then we have situations, maybe our favorite states are Texas and Florida for a lot of reasons, because they seem to be the dumbest in terms of protecting the health and welfare of the individuals who live there. But in Florida, the Norwegian Cruise Line went into court and convinced a federal judge to enjoin the requirement they have to get on their cruise, which is to show that you've been vaccinated, like a passport. Seems very sensible that everybody on the ship would approve to be vaccinated. This is notwithstanding, the breakthrough infections that we're talking about. And we don't know what the governor's going to do, but the court said you're right. And they have a temporary injunction that permits them to have people come on their Norwegian cruise who have been vaccinated, double vaxxed. So what kind of happy story do I have today? We have people stupid about science in two huge directions. One is global warming, which they feel is always down the road, and one is right here now, which is the virus. Manchin, okay, we've talked about him in a critical fashion, but I want to tell you one thing that I get a kick out of the guy for. It's not a lot of it about his politics these days. When I ran for Congress a long time ago, people heard me on the radio, and they were on the presidential yacht, which goes back years. Beautiful yacht. JFK used it, FDR used it. You get people out on that boat, and you can get things done that you can't get elsewhere because there's nowhere to go. You're on the boat. And so they held some functions on there, and for me. And later on, I represented the yacht, and I saved it, I think, from bankruptcy on one occasion as their lawyer. And when I worked on the Hill, we had a reception on the boat with Bill Clinton. So, okay, that's one story. Now, here's another, and this is why I'm interested in it. Manchin has got a houseboat, and he bought a slip in D.C., and so that's where he lives when he's working on Congress. And he has these little parties there, and they're not wild parties, but, they have some beers, they talk, people from different views get together, and it's an all off-the-record place. And I think that says something cool about him, because when I worked up there and I couldn't find any way to afford it, I would have rented a slip or paid rent for a boat that was there that no one was using. I never got to do that. So I think that's cool, and that makes him cool. Now, if we could just get him to be cooler in his policy persuasion, we'd have something really going there. Anyhow, it's a nice Monday. I hope you're doing well, and just persist. That's how we survive. Persist, annoy, and resolve to encourage others to do intelligent things that they're not presently doing. All the best. Bye-bye.